So here we go. Today, and I'm now down to 45 minutes, we have 25 topics. So I'll just tell you right now that I apologize that this is going to go fast. You're going to feel like he's talking too fast and it's hard to absorb, but we want to get you inspired, and I think there are different things for different people. So I can see my first three topics are floor plan, gamification, and then we're doing ROI. So let me just go straight to that. Floor plan. And by the way, as you look at the topics, keep it going and I will keep going. So floor plan. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of floor plans. So it seems some of you are, designing events, and I get that. And these are events that were designed pre-COVID. So I'm not sharing with you events that are coming up. Part of it is there are different regulations. By the way, we have some events that have taken place. Last week, there was an event in Germany in the salon. It was a salon event. There's been an auto show in Korea. World Trade Center in Las Vegas had an event, I believe, 2 weeks ago, as did the Atlanta Gift Mart. I believe it was Atlanta or Dallas Gift Mart. So there have been events. What I wanted to give you a sense of different ways to think of activations. And again, you're going to see some violation of social distancing. These were created pre-COVID. What I'm trying to point out here is most people think of an event as a grid, right? That's the grid structure we've all been selling for years when it comes to a trade show. This happens to be a medical event. This event was delayed. It's the Society of Surgical Oncology, but they posted their plans and some videos, promotional videos, to their website prior to delaying or canceling the event. What you see here in these colored blobs on the right-hand side are zones. They're zones of interaction, which include theater areas, meetup areas, new products, and posters. You can obviously see the big amoeba on the right-hand side where it says large stage. So there was a stage set. So the first thing you see right away is there's no grid. There is red, just probably outside the hall. But what this shows is allowing people to convene by community and to share all the different facets by community. What do you do about the corporate model? Well, the corporates have an opportunity to participate in these zones and to provide either elements of their new products or presentations and discussions, but it's a radically different model when you think about what the interactivity is. Instead of selling real estate and space, you're selling time and engagement, and you're doing it with a VIP audience, which we'll have the debate about, how many thousands of people can you try and go back to? I'm going to make an argument on a couple of slides today that you should be trying to have smaller VIP events where the corporate partners are willing to pay a premium because they get a better targeted audience. I will just point out on the right-hand side, by the way, those are different VIP lounge and meeting rooms. Now you could do something obviously very socially distanced because you got plenty of space here, but this is the kind of radical different thinking, both in terms of the interactivity and the business model that we need to be thinking about. Can we spread out the aisles and can we spread out the booths and the chairs? We can. Does that create a better experience? Not convinced of it. The other piece I would tell you that's been a key theme on the on-site before COVID and during COVID and coming out of it is a lot of networking is taking place, and networking, peer-to-peer interactions and consultations, those all take place in the hallways. How can we create a place where people can do that in a space that still manages capacity? So think of this as potentially these blobs as appointment-based interactions and managing the capacity of interactivity as well as having meetup zones. And I want to give you a different version, by the way. This is from the American Heart Association. This is called Heart Hub. And the idea behind this was to create a whole heart, literally the heart of the meeting, where there was learning, hands-on demos, theater. Now, Heart sponsored this in year one. There's an evolution about this whole experience, but both of these are dramatically removed from the grid-like structure. In fact, this Heart Hub concept was amidst a grid-like structure. But I think as we get out of COVID, and we'll talk, if you do trend lines, we'll talk about like the timing on that. But I would just say that we can space this out, we can manage capacity. We need to look at what makes sense for potentially screening who comes from a qualification standpoint. Of course, everyone needs to be screened from a safety and health standpoint. But this is about curating content and engagement, not just laying out real estate and then saying to people, just populate it with something. It's really thinking through what you're doing at your events versus just hosting the event and hoping that people and your exhibitors will create the right experience. So with that, I'm going to go to the next topic, and that was gamification, I think. So gamified. This is going to go more to the online space than to the on-site space. And there are lots of different versions of gamification. I just wanted to point out a couple things because a lot of people have been asking lately, do you get better results from gamification? The answer is yes. This is from an analysis that we have done based on a number of events that we've hosted. And what you can see here is exhibitor engagement. This is particularly around exhibitor engagement, has been increasing, and dwell time, or the amount of time people are spending online and engaging, has also gone up. Thank you very much. Excellent. That will come up later. Thank you, hon. And then peer-to-peer networking also increased by 5.6%. So for those of you asking, should I be doing gamification? I think the answer is yes. My one caveat, I would be very careful about how you design the gamification or the games online and the activities, meaning just like the live event, many of your corporate partners do not want to speak to an unqualified audience that's merely engaging with them because of obtaining points. Now, if people, usually this comes up with like students and early career professionals. If people are looking to get, if their target audience is those young professionals and that's an appealing way to do this, that's fine. But most of the corporate partners we're dealing with are looking for leads, meaningful engagement, demos, downloads. So depending upon what platform, and that's the other piece I got to do a caveat on, but depending on what platform you use, I would be looking with that partner about meaningful engagement and not just people accumulating points, because the amount of time people spend online, the amount of days is lower, and therefore every minute counts. So every minute that's wasted on someone who's tire kicking to gain points is not a good use of the corporate partners' dollars. That brings me to one other piece, by the way, that I wanted to do a caveat on is I'm not going to talk about online platforms. There's a slew of them. Happy to have a conversation about it offline. We're in this space at various different places, and I work with both our own tools and others. But if you're looking for a platform, I would say this is not the right session, because this is really about inspiring with ideas and strategy and not necessarily about technology, but always happy to have that conversation later. So with that, I'm going to move to ROI. ROI is a really critical piece of the pie, and I've given you a lot of ideas and inspirations here. And with whatever we do, because we're going to talk about transmedia and different formats, really thinking through a different type of monetization model. For those of you who have been highly dependent on real estate for a trade show floor, obviously you've awoken to a bit of a nightmare over the last 6 months, and probably over the next 12 months. What we're endeavoring to do here is give you a lot of other things. So things that we maybe either didn't provide before or we didn't consider monetizing. So audience insights, content plays using multiple media channels. So a webinar leading to a white paper, leading to a video interview, or thought leadership. Market networks, meaning, and this is a future trend, which is how do you create the means for different parts of your ecosystem? So let's say you're in the audiovisual space, that you're taking the audiovisual manufacturers and the integrators and the architects and the specifiers, you're creating one opportunity, one place for all people to kind of understand a need from a customer and fulfill that need. Not like Angie's List, which is qualifying contractors, but a really holistic solution. But also in this day of COVID, road shows and demos, doing brand product launches, whether they're online or in person, and using, I mean, for better or for worse, we do have idle facilities now that can be used for either remote demos or for socially distanced engagement. So a lot more on the ROI front. I think that it's, I wouldn't limit your definitions, and of course we know this, to leads and brand awareness. It has to be a more holistic approach to your corporate partners. With that, I'm going to keep on going, and I'm just looking at some of the different, all right, so the next one, touchless immersion. This one's a fun one. So I don't know, by the way, for those of you who have done the, oh my God, it was in the West Loop, but it was a, I mean, the Friends experience. There was an ice cream experience in San Francisco, these pop-up experiences where people do kind of Instagram photos. This is a trend. This is the next trend of the next 10 years. One piece I'm going to show you, the Atelier de Lumière, which is in France. There's another museum in Japan, but this is the trend we're going to see over the next 10 years. And by the way, if you live in Chicago and you see the merchandise mart with the projection technology, so that's projecting a whole show on the merchandise mart. This is the next evolution of that. Imagine an indoor environment where you have an Atelier de Lumiere is taking Renoir paintings and creating an immersive experience you walk through. Instead of watching his art, you're living and walking through those experiences. That is going to be, so touchless immersive means it's effectively, call it an empty factory floor that has projection mapping all over it, and you walk through it. The right-hand side, I want to give you a different inspiration. This comes from Yayoi Kusama. For those of you who are on chat, you know Yayoi Kusama. You're probably like me. You're kind of a fanatic when she comes to town. Her shows sell out. What you're looking at on the right-hand side, it is what it looks like. It's a bunch of colored stickers on a bunch of white room. Yayoi has done a series of blockbuster art exhibitions around the world. I went to see her exhibition in Atlanta, and she's a very, very famous artist. But what was fascinating was in the last room of the exhibit, it was all white. So there weren't any of these stickers. And so what happened was, as you walked through as an attendee, you were given a series of about 12 stickers, and there were all these different colors, and you placed the stickers on the artwork. So in other words, and touchless immersion is an official piece of art, but it's done in a variety of different facilities, and it's effectively, it was white when she created. When she left the exhibit to open, it was all white. Everything that you see in that picture, and you should look this up online because it's fantastic, and it's, I think, something that we all can do, right? It's not everybody, maybe based on budget, but you can do a white room and then socially distant, bring a certain number of people through, give them stickers, obviously, health and safety, and then let them create the room, let them create the experience by participating in it. So when we say touchless immersion, this one, yes, it is touch, but you're doing it safely and you're doing it and engaged, you're immersing people in this environment. They feel that they are creating the artwork. So two things I would definitely look up. And Atelier de Lumiere, the projection mapping immersion, we're going to see this in museums, we're going to see it in pop-ups, and I think we're going to see it with sponsor activations, in part because people can walk through it, they don't touch one another, and they don't touch the artwork itself. There's another technology we're going to talk about that gets on this as well. So I'm going to keep moving here because I got to move fast. Trend lines. It's not a pretty picture, but this is the reality. I will give you some good news as I go through this. Freeman's been doing surveys since April. These are the surveys that we do. This is a composite, but this is the folks who attend events. So one caution about surveys that you see in the industry right now, most of those surveys are asking event organizers when they want to get back. This is asking attendees when you plan to go back. This is based on the July results. I'll touch on August in a minute. What you can see in the July results is that the light blue line with, you have the red arrows beneath it. What that basically shows is that as we moved from May to June to July, people got more negative about going back to events. And so in the July results, you can see that instead of 56% of the people going back in winter of 2021, that moved really out to spring of 2021. So we're seeing 70 to 82% of folks who are really going back summer of 21 to fall of 21. What does that mean for your event? If you are a large scale, thousands of people event, you know, we need to reset our expectations on the calendar. I think the other piece I would point out here is that we're in the middle of doing our August survey. We've had more positive movement. I'm saying this anecdotally. I mean, it's still open and we're still synthesizing the data. We've seen some positive uptick. A lot of the results we get are directly related to headlines. So you might recall in the last couple of weeks, we've had a lot of headlines around vaccine phase 3 trials, ramp up production distribution. So that's promising. That doesn't mean that's where things are going to be in a month from now. So we are doing monthly surveys, and we have actually we have a subscription service we're starting this month or next month. So that's something where we're monitoring very closely. One other data point related to this is why people won't go. And that has to do with not trusting others on following safety guidelines, concern about travel, value events. Again, I think there's been some positive movement going into August. This is from the July survey. My only comment here is that just like our culture is polarized, we've seen the polarization on, say, the wearing of masks. At the end of the day, there's been a lot of discussion in the industry, like what do we do? How do we do it? All I can say is if you are an event owner or an event manager, You need to set the health guidelines. And my advice to you is that set your health standards at where 2/3 of your audience would expect those health standards to be, and that standard should be at or above what the venue or destination in its entirety requires, meaning buses and public transportation, hotels and hotel standards and venue. And to the extent that you have leverage, I would encourage you to try and work the venue and the destination to set that standard as simply and consistently as possible to make it less confusing for your attendees to your event. Okay, next, I think we're doing designing for intent. So this one's a really simple concept, but it's really hard to implement, and that is a lot of folks that I work with, a lot of folks I interact with always say, well, I want to do this and I want these breakout rooms and I need these online sessions of this live stream. I'm going to harp on this a couple of different times, but really understanding the intent of your audience. Some people are saying to me now, what do I do about hybrid? What should be online and what should be in person? My first question to you is, who do you think is going to go online and who do you think is going to show up on site? And I would tailor the experience on site to where your audience needs are and their careabouts. And I would tailor your online to careabouts online. There could be a crossover. So I'd say there's maybe 1 or 2 tracks, maybe 1 or 2 plenaries or keynotes that you do a live stream. But a lot of people are talking about how do I make my on-site online? It's completely the wrong thinking. I mean, I hate to be so blunt, but it's the wrong thinking. So the medium online is different from the medium on-site. The value of on-site needs to stand on its own and be incredibly valuable and compelling why people come. The value online should be likewise tailored to the medium, tailored to the experience. Unless you're a medical meeting, by the way, or a healthcare meeting, you should not have an event that's over 2 days, and you need to be very careful in your timing. So you're better off doing less and doing it better and doing it a high quality production than dragging up over 4 or 5 days. And by the way, I know that this event is going over 4 or 5 days, but it's touching different themes each day and different emphasis each day. It's very cleverly designed between the social part of it and the learning part of it and the discovery part of it. So think about your content curating and designing for intent. Okay, I'm gonna keep on engagement redefined. All right, so I gotta go to, all right, this one's gonna take a couple of minutes. This one does get into kind of the world of your, how to think about an event and where things are going. This is an engagement or experience framework. There are different frameworks. This is meant to give you inspiration and to spark some ideas, but a part of the thinking here is that and I hear this all the time. I have June 10th to 15th. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do my event, I should do an online event. Well, first of all, a digital event can be done any day of the year and doesn't have to be done for your entire audience the way you've done historically. You should think about your different audiences and when and how. We'll talk about different channels. But I think the key here is really thinking through, quote, the live launch. So if you're going to do a live component, you can do an introduction, like a hybrid online where you have high production value. Maybe you have some regional locations to get people excited, maybe some small in-person audiences. And then when you get to the always on, which is the online experience, or it could be with live engagement, obviously managed with health and safety, look at all the different ways people can engage with content, or they can get crowdsourcing in terms of sessions or engage with one another, ask questions of experts, open forum offices, interactive whiteboards, link to community experts. So we're no longer saying education's over here and show halls over there, and then you eat over here. It's all about content and then a follow-up into local pop-ups. So really thinking through what are those different experiences with smaller follow-on gatherings, hands-on sessions, community meetups, and coincide that with online channels. So really just kind of thinking through, I'm gonna keep going here. Hopefully that gives you some inspiration to think about the relationships, but also you'll notice I'm not doing any of those legacy words. So I'm gonna do a prayer here. And like, if you guys can if you say like, I agree, David, this is what I'm gonna do. When you talk about online, do not say the exhibit hall. Do not say I'm going to drive traffic to the exhibit hall. Even the word exhibitor, the exhibitor is a word that we have in our parlance when we think about convention center. We don't think about it in the online world. In fact, when we look on everything else on online, look at Amazon. Do we talk about store shelves and end caps? No. We look for products and we look for things that we need. So when we're doing online, let's look and let's design the events for what people need. Also, let's make it intuitive and easy to get to what they want. So, sorry, I'm going to go back because I got to skip my topic. Alternative live worlds. This is another follow-on. This is not a floor plan now. This is topics, and this is the way to think of different ways of interactions. So here we've got commerce-driven events going back to live, networking, learning. For some of you, maybe governance because you're an association. This is the big meeting of the year experience. I'll just say briefly, this is meant to spark new thinking about live experiences, especially when you're not allowed or able to host mass gatherings. And mass gatherings, by the way, is not applicable to us. We're business gatherings, but even then, it's usually it's usually defined by the number of people. So what I'm going to encourage us to think about on the commerce side is, and I mentioned this earlier, VIP and appointment-based experiences where your corporate partners are willing to pay for more or maximize press coverage. If you look up IFA, IFA in Germany, they just did an event the beginning part of September, very different, a lot of startups, not a lot of companies, a lot of product reveals. Excuse me, it's a different way of doing an event to try and encourage commerce. Networking. It's really about pre-qualifying attendees and doing curated networking. So it's no longer let's have thousands of people and they'll randomly find each other, especially with the restrictions. It might be regional meetups hooked up by a common live stream, or it could be a speech in terms of a broadcast out and then people meet up. But it's really curating. But people could say hosted buyers. Yeah, you could do hosted buyers, but you have to be careful when you get into regional events because you've got corporate partners who have to staff it. For learning, I would just say it's got to be hands-on. It's got to be expert exposure. And for governance, we're hearing a lot more requests about the CEO wants to have a speech. They want to do it in a live audience. So yeah, we look at like, could we get you in a historic or a very professional-looking environment with 50 folks and still respect local guidelines? And it's going to come down to a different value proposition for reg fees and certification. And then experiences, and I've shared some of the ideas. We're going to see more pop-up conferences, road shows, and then appointment-based activations. So I am going to keep on going here. Legacy thinking. So when you think about movies, this is not what they do. So when we think about trade shows, why are we taking the format of the trade show or the conference and putting it online? So I'm just going to leave that image for 2 more seconds. Remember, we don't go to the Oscars and reward scripts that have a television camera on them. We reward amazing acting and production value and storytelling. Yeah, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Unlocking value. I got to find my U here. How do you like that? Am I missing it? Here it is. I apologize. So this is a really interesting concept. Before, most of us were cable subscribers and we paid a package price for all the different channels we wanted. Now we're totally unbundled and we pay for that kind of programming. In fact, sometimes we're on Netflix, you sign up for Hulu for a couple of months and you drop off. It's much more driven by the demand of the customer. So why don't we think of it that way? Why not think about unbundling different aspects of our organizations and our events where people might pay for a keynote and meeting with the speaker or going down a particular track. And yes, you pay a premium for the convenience of doing this. And before you tell me, hang on a second, is anybody doing this? Yes, there is an event that is launched where you pay one fee for 7-day live access, another fee for the 30-day access to content post-event in addition to the 7 days, and then there's a third fee for 90 days. And the reason being is that there's a lot of content people want to absorb, and there's a different value proposition, and therefore the best value is the 90-day window. But if you just want the 7-day, you can pay for it, but on a pricing strategy standpoint, there's a premium for just having 7 days and not opening up for 30 days. So it's a combination of understanding where value lies. By the way, some people want free. You could do a free event. But if you do a free event, make sure you're getting something for it. So when people say like, I've got thousands of people, that's true. I will tell you this, our data shows that about 60% of the people actually show up for a free event. On a paid event, it's 90 to 115%. So you get better value when you have a paid event because people actually show up. The second piece is if you do free, it's okay, but it's an attending acquisition cost. It's not really the same as a value proposition. And even within the event, you can unbundle different experiences, just like we do in the cable TV space. So again, that's going to be worth a broader conversation, but I want to get the concept to get you thinking about it, and then, we can have a conversation. Cravings. Where's my C? Cravings. What do we crave? We crave belonging, community, conversation, discovery, entertainment, friends, novelty, serendipity. But we don't design for any of this. We design for sessions, learning, networking. Why not create the experiences that enable these things? And you'll hear later when I talk about the campus, use everything, right? If people are going to stay in a hotel room or they're going to drive downtown and park in a parking lot, why not have an experience when they get out of their car? Why not make an experience when they do the health and safety check? I mean, I'll touch on that. I don't know if I have the slide for that, but why not have it where you take a picture of folks in a step and repeat when you're doing the health and safety check, and then you give them a badge that doesn't reflect the temperature taking, but reflects they're being at the event with the step and repeat, making an experience. At the same time, you're ensuring it's healthy and safe. When corporate partners, this is what they want. This is what they want. They don't want a booth. They want this. That's why when I show you that first floor plan, it was going after what they want, the types of engagements they're seeking, as opposed to paying for a bunch of real estate they may or may not use effectively. So anyway, those are cravings. So I'm going to keep going down here. I love the fact that you guys are doing this. Treasure hunt. All right. This is, you got to get up now. You got to do some things for me. You got 1 minute. Go ahead. I'm going to talk for 30 seconds, but go get a coffee or tea mug that reflects your mood right now. Get a picture of yourself, your family having fun. And then here's what I really want you to do. Go on the chat, and I want you to write down your happy place. So here we go. The David Saef contribution to this. First of all, my mug. Here's my mug. Not the same mug. This is what I like to do. I like to ski. And by the way, in case you're wondering about skiing, for those of you who would like it, because you're wondering like, how the hell are we going to do skiing with COVID? Go look at Epic Pass and go look at what the Epic folks are doing with limiting capacity, only allowing you to be on the chairlift with your family members and varying the chairlift so that you're safely skiing. Like, could we ski? You could, because they're thinking about capacity and experience. They're not changing the charge for the tickets from what I can tell, but they're creating a better experience. And then I did have a couple of pictures here, but then I don't know. Here's a good picture. I don't know. Here's a great one. Here's my picture. Here's my family story. Whoop, can you see that's my daughter, right? That's her first day of school. My mother, I sent to my mother, she called me, she goes, oh my God, is she wearing pajamas? She is. And my mother's like, well, it's totally, you know, I grew up like, you don't wear that. I said, Mom, she's on Zoom. Who cares what's below her waist in terms of what she's wearing? But it's just a sign of the times. We had a debate about whether she would be a better learner if she wore more formal clothes. So there you go. I want to see if you guys agree with that statement. Should she have worn something more than just pajama bottoms? So, all right, here we go. By the way, I don't know if I can see everybody. So hopefully, you know, Dylan, we can grab some screenshots of mugs. Can you do that? That'd be great. Or pictures. All right, I got to go keep going here. Delivery matters. This is for you, by the way. It's for all of you, whether you are a participant or whether you're a speaker, but it's mainly talking to the speakers. 8 things to be a better speaker and participant at home. Level your eyes. So you can see, even though my camera's slightly below, it's a little more like my nose, it's pretty close to my eyes. I use my computer webcam. I think it works pretty well. You can see, by the way, I do have a light here, and I vary the light. When it gets dark outside, I vary the light, but lighting is very key. If you have key speakers and you have a budget, I would encourage you to send out mics and audio. Make sure there are mic checks and audio. What not to wear: black and white, highly contrasting clothes and stripes. Frames and rehearsals. This I'm gonna show you that in a minute. Your background. I use my house. I don't like these fake backgrounds. If you want a really cool background, go to a company called NIO, N-I-I-O. They have these backgrounds and they have interactive art in the background. That's their business. N-I-I-O. Dylan, I don't know if you can run that in the chat. Presentation design. Make sure it's simple. Not a lot of bullets. You can see a lot of what I've got here is not text heavy. There's a lot of different pieces here that might be of interest to you. And I know this may sound like a speaker slide. It really isn't, but it's really leaving the headroom. I don't know how well I'm doing this, by the way. I've got a little bit of headroom, right? Making sure you're lining up with the top third. People can see above your head, communicate with your hands and body. So I'm doing a bunch of that, right? So I don't use my elbows, just the way my camera's positioned, but whether you are on a business call or a conference call or other things, just make sure you're really thinking about your frame and your speaker frames. And yes, you know, I've got some guides for speakers and happy to chat with folks about that. But I got to keep going. Slides in the presentation, you can work through. Dylan, it's by request. Data on outdoor events, I don't. And My Garden, do I have something called My Garden here? I don't. So I don't know, Antoinette, you're gonna have to come back to me. Oh, I'm sorry, that's what you love. This is your places you guys love. The garden, the woods, the lakefront, Chipotle. All right. Yard by the fire, love this. North Beach and South Haven, this is awesome. All right, are there any other topics you guys wanna see? Oh my God, wow, look at all these places they like to go. All right, I guess we ran out of topics. So let me just go through some random topics we haven't gotten to yet. How about that? Augmented world, let's start with that. And by the way, keep those topics coming. If you don't request it, I don't get to it, right? So I'm gonna run out of time in about, I don't know, 14 minutes. So here we go. Augmented reality is the most important technology that there are two technologies that we're going to see. And by the way, I'm deliberately not saying virtual reality for obvious reasons. For those of you who've used Oculus Rift and other things, virtual reality has stumbled. Maybe it'll recover, maybe it'll get better, but augmented reality is not only a great technology, it is also a safe and healthy technology because it's your device with your fingers, but it's enabling to have a better experience with products or services or offerings. And so if you aren't familiar with augmented reality, and I have to confess, if you send me a note later, that I will send you a couple of links. I didn't put them on here, but I can't emphasize enough how important understanding augmented reality is. Also, bear in mind our cameras on our phones, unless you have a phone that's 10 or 15 years old, your phone can enable a great augmented experience today. So augmented reality is really, it's going to be something we're going to continue to see more and more of as things go by. So I would encourage you to make sure you're getting a full understanding and leveraging it and using it. And we see this, by the way, with venues. Augmented reality, see what my venue is doing, what I'm doing, how I'm going to build out a venue, how I'm going to build an experience, or how I immerse people in a product. RX for the soul. This is back to us. I love these things. Again, I want you to go back into chat. I know we're just in chat. Go back into chat and tell me what you have done. What have you picked up? This is what David Saef has picked up. So by the way, this top picture is a challah that's baked on Friday nights. My wife actually teaches how to make a challah, and she's amazing. And I've always wanted to I've done stuff. When I do a challah, for those of you who know what a brisket is like a steak. The last time I did it with my kids, like 10 or 15 years ago, what should have looked like this beautiful bread looked like a grilled steak. So they used to call my challah a brisket. So this is what I've been doing. I made bagels a couple of weeks ago. This morning, by the way, the left-hand picture, I've been watching videos of Jacques Papin and how he makes eggs. I love his videos. I made it this morning, and we got a fryer for the potatoes. So I would just say, just tell us, what are you doing? That's non on the right-hand side. But yeah, I think it's so critical, whether it's a personal skill or something you've wanted to do or try. By the way, some of my bagels sucked. Some of them were great. But let's try stuff. Let's do things. Let's fail a little bit in our personal lives and even in our work lives. But that's what I mean by RX for the soul. We can't live through this time without pushing ourselves in a way that we have never done before. And I see a home improvement trend, cooking trend, baking trend, a lot of certifications on LinkedIn. It's all great. Let's make sure we're doing RX for the soul. Nature break is another kind of a really important piece. And I'm seeing a lot of this mainly with dogs and kittens, but I wanted to do the panda and the eagle cam. The panda, you may, if you don't know, the Smithsonian Zoo, the National Zoo, had a panda who just had a baby probably 3 weeks ago, and there's a panda cam. I watch it on Facebook a bunch. I mention this in part because I think it breaks in online events or breaks in live events. And by the way, many of you know this, with dogs and cats, you bring in these pets that can be handled, or they can be handled by people, but you can manage capacity. People like to engage. It's a stress, de-stress piece, even online. If you're gonna have a break for a couple of minutes and you give people a bio break, give them a nice picture, something interesting to look at. And so it's important. Now I could have done mountains, I could have done streams, I decided to do animals, but make sure that while everything is professional, it's okay to take a break for 2 minutes and give people a view of something they wouldn't normally see. Get out. Really get out and think differently. So this is an event that took place a year or two ago. This is from San Diego. For those of you who know the San Diego Convention Center, there's this large multifaceted parking garage across the street at one of the major ophthalmology events. The Johnson & Johnson company not only painted the side of that, or wrapped the side of that parking garage in their branding, they created an entire learning hub in the restaurant on the ground floor. So the attendees left the convention center, went across the street, had this learning experience. So why am I showing you this? Because if I think about McCormick Place, you have, or if I think about, you think about O'Hare, You land in O'Hare, you see a bunch of billboards as you go into the city. You're in the taxi, you go to the hotels and experience the hotel. You know, you're gonna take an Uber, you're gonna walk to maybe the Hyatt to have an experience. There's restaurants along the way. Unfortunately, we do have some retails being impacted, some restaurants being impacted. Those are facilities that can be managed with capacity and creating new experiences. In the UK last month, maybe 6 weeks ago, pop-up stadium, which is socially distanced. You can see the clustering of the chairs, platforms that were socially distanced. This is 2,500 people at the Virgin Money pop-up Unity Arena. So we can do this. We have open space. We've underutilized restaurants. Like, let's do this, right? So, all right, let me keep on going here. Let's see. Oh, campus play. Let's do that. Oh my God, I got a lot to cover here. Campus play. I just talked about a bunch of this. Now you can see these people are not socially distanced, but use every inch. As people go from the area, the streets around the hotels, we see a lot of restaurants that are out on the streets now. If you're creating an event, and obviously you got to be managing the capacity here, but how do you create touch points all along the way and not just when they get to the venue? We're restricted in the venue. So we need to create different touch points along the way. We will get back to the types of events we were used to, but we need to manage through that. So think of every square inch of interactivity and make sure that you're taking advantage of that. So let's see, sorry, I'm campus play, drawing. Nah, let me do excellence redefined. This is a model that we've got. It's a little bit of a play on words. It's the excellence model, XLNC. Why do attendees and audiences engage with you? Because they're either seeking to learn, network, do business, or have an experience. The Chicago Auto Show is a great example of an experience. People don't buy a car at the Chicago Auto Show, but they experience the cars. A lot of them go out and buy cars. That's what ride and drives are all about. Networking. Networking is the most overused, least parsed or understood word. Sometimes it's mentor-mentee, sometimes it's expert interviews, sometimes it's peer-to-peer. But sometimes it's problem solving. So really think about the motivations of your attendees, and then this model looks at a spectrum from emotion to action, and then monitors signals, whether that's online or in person. What are you doing to make sure you deliver on the attendee needs as opposed to just creating that event? Don't yammer on. This is a little bit dated, it's a couple months old, but I don't think it's all that irrelevant. But you can see that one of these session lengths, this is from On24, is over 60 minutes. Most of these session lengths range from 35 to about 49 minutes. The best timing for an online session, best timing, and I'm breaking it, is 35 minutes. You really want about 18 or 19 minutes of delivery and 15 minutes of interactivity. The way we formatted this was 25 ideas in whatever we said, 54 minutes. So obviously I've got to deliver it fairly fast, but on a speaker who's trying to impart knowledge and make sure that people are kind of understanding and engaging with that knowledge, then it's better to have it shorter and then have it more interactive. And by the way, especially with millennials and Gen Z, that's what they want. They want to tackle things together. Understand first. I've touched on this theme a couple of times. I'll just harp on it here. If you don't understand your audience and what their needs are, you can't create meaningful events. And if you're trying to do what you did last year, but fit into the COVID of today, then we're totally missing the boat. It is critical to do research and insights about what your audience needs are. So if you write down one question to ask your audience, it's this question: what keeps you up at night from a professional perspective? What keeps you up at night? Not what kind of event you want to go to, how many days or how many speakers, what keeps you up at night? You solve that problem, people will pay you spades and they'll spend lots of time with you. Transmedia. Transmedia, this chart basically is telling you that people are absorbing a lot more. Transmedia is a fancy word for different formats of engaging with audiences. And it's usually used in the corporate space, but we're using in the organizer space because it's important for people to start talking about transmedia. People are using multimedia to engage. We do it. So in our, I'm sorry about that. Let me go back. Transmedia, they're using multi-formats. What does that mean in the event space? It means while we are focused on live streams, live experiences, whether on-site or online, that is not where things should end. You should be having a healthy, balanced diet of providing different content across different channels based on the needs and expectations of your audience. There's a lot more to parse through on this, but to think of things as monolithic between having an on-site event or having an online event, we're missing the fact, and I'm one of them. I listen to a podcast every morning when I run. And there's podcasts I listen to religiously. You may have a part of your audience that loves podcasts that can be done from a thought leader who spoke at a conference, who does Q&A with you in a sound room that's part of your podcast. In fact, you could do 20 podcast recordings at your online or live event, and then you can have a podcast subscription that you provide to your community. So think multi-channel, not on-site or online. All right, let's see, we're down to integrated and sync. Let's do that one. This is a great model to show you where we are and where we're going. So pre-COVID, we had a little bit of data, a lot of like in-person and streaming, but if you look at that right-hand side, that's where we're going. Data needs to inform the content. So data and insights informs the audience needs, which governs the content that you editorialize and manage, which then helps to inform the use of virtual streaming. And you can see the in-person continues to be critical, and it's like the manifestation of key engagements, but it happens more throughout the year as opposed to going on just like a streaming might do throughout the year. So you can see it's staging these things, but using at the heart of it data and content. If you don't have a data strategy or an insight strategy, it's going to be tough now, especially when you look at what's going on in our real world. The reason why we use Amazon so much and we're addicted to things like Google and others is because they're so good at helping us, maybe too good given some of the things that have been reported lately, but they help us have a more meaningful and direct engagement than what we're used to. So I've got 3 minutes here. I've got 2 more things to cover. So let me do this, helping one another real quick. Go back in a chat, help each other out now. This is not hard. I want you to write down a Netflix series, and you can't write Tiger King or The Last Dance. You can't use those. Write another Netflix series that you're watching or you have been watching that's really great that everybody else should watch. And find something obscure that most people might not know of. If you have an online event or an element of an online event that you loved, then write it in the chat. Or if there's an experience that you've seen that was really cool, whether it was live or online, but mainly live that was really cool, then put it in chat. So I see this Ozark, All-American, Mrs. Maisel. Let's talk about online events too. What are the like really good online events that you've seen or elements? I've seen Anchor Desks, very cool. I did see, I didn't go see him perform, but Adam, what's his name? Oh my God. I want to say from InSync, but Adam Levine from, oh my God, whatever group it was. He did a 30-minute conference, 30-minute Maroon 5. He did a 30-minute exclusive concert for one online conference. So keep going with those experiences. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to promote Netflix. You can promote whatever you want, Hulu, CBS, whatever. Next, that's my last slide, and I'm gonna make it in 10:25. These are things I'm watching for the next 10 years. And by the way, it's a great book. I don't usually promote books, but this one, I interviewed this guy, he's really good, The Innovation Ultimatum. Whoops, he goes into most of these different trends. His name is Steve Brown. Artificial intelligence, sensors and Internet of Things, autonomous machines, blockchain, augmented reality. He does touch on virtual and 5G communications connections. He doesn't talk about social marketplaces, but that's another trend that I'm watching, particularly in the event space. So on AI, that's what we mean by data and insights, using that intelligence to drive a better experience. And then autonomous machines, we're already seeing with drone and drone delivery, we're seeing new models of how people are going to operate. And so things that probably we could probably automate, we should, but we should create better, more curated experiences. And then I just want to mention, because people say like, what else is coming out there in terms of looking at the future? Oh my God, I apologize. There's a future forecast. This is just a heads up. We're actually we're releasing a report tomorrow or today. Excuse me, a white paper on the future of experiences, which might be helpful to you. Another research, so that may help keep you on the pulse of things. The white papers are industry insights that may be beneficial at no cost. The research is something that is we have a subscription model around. So I just wanted to call those out as ways to help you. And with that, I'm going to say, oh my God, it's 10:25. I cannot believe I got through this. But while I'm talking, go into the chat and tell your peers other stuff, whether it's something to watch, a hobby to do, a place to go. And I'll just tell you, by the way, if you're in Chicago and you're not taking advantage of our great city and going to see our architects, our architectural buildings, going to the lakefront safely, go to the garden south of MSI, the Sky Deck, you know, as it opens, and some of the other major facilities with to Chicago and everything else going on with the sponsors of this event and our great city. Please get out. If you're not in Chicago, go take advantage of great things that you can see safely, and also be sure to wear your mask, and where you can, continue to bake. That was what my daughter delivered. I just want to say to Atima and to Tim and to Dylan, thank you very, very much for accommodating me, and I hope I've left you with some great ideas and inspirations. Wish you a great morning.
Well, thank you so much, David. That was fantastic. You went so fast, I'm gonna have to go and rewatch it later with a notepad. So I'm excited that we recorded, and I think I'm going to close with that video again in case anyone missed it or had audio issues, and I'm gonna also shoot that link into the chat. Starting in just a few minutes, we will hear from Sean Denny from our production partners at Lux Productions. They have a really awesome video for us, and I will see you at 10:30. Thanks again, David. Looking forward to seeing the new white papers coming out from Freeman.